Psalm 100, one of my favorite worship psalms in the whole Bible, talks about praise like it's a pair of glasses and a password. Let's dig into that and what that means in episode 3 of Cultivate. All right, welcome back. So glad to have you here in this third installment of the Cultivate videos series, Spirit and Truth. And what we're doing over the course of this series is spending some time in different psalms in the Bible and looking at the way God instructs us about worship, instructs us about praise, and what worship and praise are to look like in our lives. This week, we're looking at a great one, Psalm 100. Let me pull that up here on the screen. Psalm 100 says this: "Shout triumphantly to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Acknowledge that Yahweh is God. He made us, and we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for Yahweh is good, and his love is eternal. His faithfulness endures through all generations." Thanksgiving in general, the idea of Thanksgiving in general, it reorients you away from yourself, right? And forces you to consider the work of others. Looking at what others have done. That's kind of what Thanksgiving is all about. It draws your attention away from you and allows you to look towards others and to consider what others have done. It's a good thing to be thankful, generally speaking, in your life. Thanksgiving in worship does the same thing, but it draws you away from yourself and forces you to consider the work of God. Thanksgiving in worship, it does the same thing. It draws you away from yourself, but it forces you to consider, truthfully, the work of God. You begin to see the truth of what things are when you begin to give thanks in your heart to God. It forces you to see the truth, right? The psalmist here quickly moves between thanksgiving and praise because thanksgiving opens up our eyes to the truth of God, and the truth of God inspires praise. Give thanks, the psalmist says, because the truth is that Yahweh is God. Give thanks, the psalmist says, because the truth is that he made us. Give thanks, the psalmist says, because the truth is we are his. Give thanks and consider his works. And when you consider his works, praise is always the correct response. It's a little bit like adjusting a lens so that things come into focus and clarity. At first, things might seem blurry, but when you make an adjustment in the lens, when you refocus a lens, things become clear, right? You begin to see things in the reality of what they are. Praise with thanksgiving is a reaction to seeing the truth. Praise with thanksgiving is a reaction to observing reality, a declaration of who God is and of what he has done. So what this means for us is maybe you find yourself, like I do oftentimes, with a need to refocus in my life. Like maybe things have become moving a little bit too fast, or things are becoming a little bit blurry for me, and I'm not sure where my priorities should be. I'm not sure which way is which, right? Maybe it's a time to fix or even find priorities in your life. It turns out the way we were intended to live is just an act of worship away. Gratitude and praise is just an act of worship away. The way we can see the truth of life is just an act of worship away. It can begin, Psalm 100 shares with us, just by giving thanks in your heart to God. And really, that's probably take home enough for many of us, right? The idea of bringing life into focus and reality into focus, that probably is enough take home for me. But there's a bonus here, because Psalm 100 just keeps giving. Because we also see here that the psalmist presents worship not just as an act, but as a sort of gateway, a sort of path The psalmist says, enter into his presence with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. There's this ancient fairy tale called Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, and maybe you've heard of it. Here's kind of a picture representation of it. But there's this part of the story where there's a cave where the thieves, this group of 40 thieves, hide all their treasure, and there's a secret word required to open the cave. And without that word, you're not going to get in. In order to enter the cave, you had to say those words. Do you know them? Open sesame. Psalm 100 is saying that there's an attitude that opens us up, that opens our hearts up for God's presence. There's an attitude that is like a gateway. It prepares us and opens us up to be ready to receive the gift of God's presence that he is offering. What is the magic word? It's not power. It's not your hard work. It's not effort. It's not glory. Giving thanks. Gratitude. Gratitude in your hearts to God. If you make that journey, he's waiting to meet you there. If you enter in through the gates of thanksgiving, he's waiting to meet you there. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time.